Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Now here are your hosts, Josh Guesman and Wendy Thomas.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Our live show is up and running on a Thursday night, the night before the big storm. That's right, in California, when it rains, everybody panics. Get your sandbags out. Get your buckets out. It's going to rain in Southern California once again. I don't know why. That is stuck in my mind, Wendy, but I don't know. I guess I look at the LA Galaxy news and everything that's coming out, and I think that the rain is probably a more interesting story at this point.
When it rains, it pours, Josh.
There it is. That was the pun that we needed. Thank you, Wendy. The pun, maybe not the pun we deserved, but the pun that we needed. All right? It was okay. So the LA Galaxy, listen, we're going to go over some stuff tonight. We're obviously going to talk a little bit about the San Jose game. From what we can say, you're talking to two people who didn't get to see it, and I'm probably in the 90 to 95% of people who didn't get to see this game. I talked about it a little bit on Monday night with Kevin Baxter and about sort of what we could possibly learn from a game that, one, we didn't watch, and two, the result of is, again, almost negligible and thrown away. And if you're an LA Galaxy fan, I know that you're already cringing at the fact that you lost to San Jose, Wendy. But the starters, if you want to go, can we go like sunny side first? Let's go sunny side first.
Sure.
All right,
let's be positive. I think Chris Tucker was saying he's trying to do positive Galaxy tweets. So let's be positive.
Okay, so the positive side of this is that your starters so far in the preseason have given up 0 goals. All right, which on a defense that has been quote unquote suspect already, the LA Galaxy again have not conceded a goal. You had 45 minutes of quote unquote starters against the Xolos of Tijuana, and then you got about 60 minutes of starters versus San Jose. So in the Xolos game, it was 0-0 after 45 minutes, and in the San Jose game, it was 0-0 after 60 minutes. So you have 2 0-0 draws. The pessimistic side of that, of course, Wendy, is the other 0 on that, which is 0 goals scored for the starters so far as well.
Yeah, also not good. Not a promising sign.
No, it's not. And
also another thing is you wonder how many of those starters will actually be healthy when the season starts, and how many of that second tier of players will actually be playing for us, because just based on what we have so far in terms of preseason injuries, we're going to have to go into that depth chart, and those are the people we're going to, is the people who are playing the second halves of those games.
Yeah, but you're not really, because technically speaking, those guys are already playing. Because Robbie Rogers isn't playing. Rafa Garcia has been starting both of those games. And Jossie Zardes isn't playing. Jack McBean and Ari Lassiter have been filling in for them. So, even Alice Sandrini, who's eventually supposed to actually be with this club, by the way, that is actually supposed to happen this week, possibly in the next week, hopefully soon. Romain,
doesn't the season start in like 3 weeks?
Yes, okay. It does. Yeah,
so they'll definitely have to be here by then.
Yeah, it's interesting to sort of see how this plays out. And granted, lots of people have just signed designated players, Wendy. So it's not like the LA Galaxy are alone in their problems.
Oh, sure.
The big deal, of course, is that the LA Galaxy probably need their designated player a lot more than some of these other teams. So.
Listen, there are MLS fans who take the position that the beginning part of a season really doesn't matter because it's all about MLS Cup. I'm not one of them, because I would love to win a Supporter Shield. I'm like, I love winning MLS Cup. I'd love to win a Supporter Shield. If you do want to win the Supporter Shield, then the beginning of the season matters.
Yeah, listen, I think it all matters, and it's not even. I mean, granted, you can look at Seattle, who was in last place, and they come back and they roared to win an MLS Cup. The LA Galaxy pulled some of that as well, not necessarily from last place, but sneak into the playoffs, get hot at the right time, and win an MLS Cup. So there is certainly something to be said that that it's important to play good soccer. But you look at FC Dallas, who was clearly I think the best team in Major League Soccer last year, right? And they walked away with the Supporters Shield, but they didn't get an MLS Cup. And ultimately, it is about winning the MLS Cup, no matter how much the people who win Supporters Shields try to build it up as the real championship.
Red Bulls fans.
Yeah, Seattle fans before they won an MLS Cup. I mean, it's like it's anybody. It's really you're clinging to hope. All right, it's realistically you say, oh, this is more important, and perhaps there's a really good argument that it is the bigger trophy to win. When it's harder to win.
European fans would say that it absolutely is the bigger trophy to win because, the team that accumulates the most points by the end of the season is overall the team that's, the best team in the league. In the United States, we have a tradition of playoffs. It's incorporated into our culture. It's embedded in our blood. And so we want there to be a competition at the end to determine who is the victor, who vanquishes all. And from that perspective, it's, whoever walks away at the end of the night with the biggest trophy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but the biggest trophy is the MLS Cup. The Supporters Shield, I've held it. It's not that big. It's a plate.
It's a plate.
It's a plate. So fun story, actually. Whenever I first started following soccer, this was in the 2008 season. In 2008, the Columbus Crew faced off against the New York Red Bulls in MLS Cup at Home Depot Center there, but StubHub Center. And so as a season ticket holder for the first time in 2008, you got your tickets. Your tickets included MLS Cup because they wanted you to go. So and realistically, this is the complete exact opposite argument for having sort of a Super Bowl type, a city hosts MLS Cup, and then you don't have the home fans that should necessarily be there to see the championship and everything. So 2008, it's the Red Bulls and Columbus in a stadium full of basically Galaxy fans.
Which doesn't make any sense.
No, so it was one of those things. I showed up and I'm like, hey, I guess I get to pick who I want to root for. Anybody but New York was pretty much my thing, but I didn't even know what the Supporters Shield was at that point. This is so early in my fandom that I'm like, how did they win the Supporters Shield? Their fans suck. Like, it's supporters, so I thought it was like the best supporters got the trophy, like that type of thing.
Well,
yeah.
In 2008, actually, Robbie Rogers was playing for the Columbus Crew, so you could have had the opportunity to see a future LA Galaxy player.
Oh, apparently I did. Don't ask me to recall anything from that game. Columbus won. But we had people in the chat room on our live show saying that final sucked, and I have to agree. It wasn't as bad as I still think the worst final ever is still going to be FC Dallas versus Colorado because it ended on an own goal. Although people certainly are putting forward the Seattle Sounders and Toronto FC, this most recent MLS Cup, as the worst MLS Cup because there was...
It was a little dire. I loved the playoffs between Montreal and Toronto. Those were amazing games.
Yeah, but...
The final was...
zero shots on goal. Zero shots on goal.
Little dire.
Anyway, championship soccer is usually not very good soccer. If you watch UEFA's Champions League, if you watch the final there, you've seen some pretty horrible games at times.
Especially if Atletico's playing and they're just grinding out. It's just you cannot break them down, and it's like Atletico Madrid is going to take down, Barcelona or something like that. It's just desperately dire soccer.
Yes. Well, right now, and I will certainly say this last year, the LA Galaxy were desperately dire soccer, but they were
stanking it up.
But they were nowhere near a final. So excuse me. So that's sort of one of the differences there. But I already think that this year, in terms of playing style and what's going to happen, is the LA Galaxy on the field are going to be a lot more exciting. I don't know if they are going to be as successful as they were last year, but I think it couldn't be less exciting because it was horrible last year. I felt like falling asleep in the press box on multiple games.
It was Bruce Ball. It was epic Bruce Ball.
But it was different because Bruce Arena has put together teams that Tiki Taco, we've seen.
2014 was a fantastic team.
We've seen.
No, but like when Bruce Arena is pitted into a difficult situation where his back is up against the wall and he just needs to get a result, he will become the most pragmatic coach in the world and just resort to tactics which are visually, aesthetically unattractive. But he does so in order to get results. There's people who would say that Jose Mourinho is the same way. But that's just the nature of Bruce Arena. And Bruce Arena last year, we had tons of injuries. We had tons of absences. Our DPs were on the bench. And he probably just looked at the team and said, I am going to get results any way I can. I will grind out results. Do you remember how many draws we had? I mean, we were just defending for our lives in some of those games, which is just unappealing. It's not exactly the style of soccer that you associate with the LA Galaxy. And I don't think it's one that we particularly want to emulate this year.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's not something that you want to, and I don't think it can. Quite honestly, I don't think you can. I mean, because there's so many. If you've watched even the first preseason game where you got to see it against Jalos, and we can sort of use that as our frame of reference, that team already is a completely different beast than what last year was. And last year had the names, and realistically, last year's team won an MLS Cup before even stepping on the field with the names that they had on that roster. It's why you actually play the games, and we always go through that, and you look at the roster. So, you look at this roster, and nobody's going to give the LA Galaxy, a fighting chance of getting to the final. But again, it'll be about playing the games. But you can see the quickness, the passing, the speed, the youth, sort of the exuberance, the inexperience, all of those things are combining to make this year, in my mind, way more exciting than what last year was, just because you have no idea what you're going to get.
It could be really exciting. We do have no idea what we're going to get. I'm terrified, though, that we could also be terrible. I mean, there could be entertaining soccer, but we're so bad, and that's the reason it's entertaining, is that neutrals are coming in and just loving to watch the LA Galaxy lose. I mean, I know you love Jack McBean with all your heart, and he is your one true love, but we haven't scored a goal in these preseason friendlies. And if we don't score goals and Giassi Zardes is out, and if Giovanni Dos Santos just doesn't produce, then what are we going to do? Oh, no. I mean, there's, listen, even Jack McBean, who I think is going to do okay in this roster, and right now, as we're looking at it, is probably going to be a starter. Realistically, we're going to talk about the Rogers injury and the Zardes injury here coming up in just a little bit. In fact, next. But, we have no idea what you're going to get from half these guys, and that's really where it starts. So let's go to, sort of the news that started on Monday night. Kevin Baxter and I were discussing some things. He and I had some conversations before we did that show and knew that there were injuries to Rogers and Zardes that may be more serious than what it was, but we didn't have anything in terms of being able to produce that. Kevin was able to get something on Tuesday, which basically showed that Giassi Zardes did have knee surgery, which is something that the LA Galaxy were not telling people. So, in fact, there was a story that came out, I think, earlier on LAGalaxy.com that doesn't mention the fact that he has knee surgery. So after Kevin broke it, then there's stuff that comes out. Okay, and that's sort of how it is right now. If you're not following Kevin Baxter, and some of the other guys who are sort of breaking news and really trying to dig into stuff, especially about the LA Galaxy, Kevin is doing a great job, which is why he's on the show a whole bunch, is that, we're trying to get the information out from people who necessarily don't want it out. And if you're the LA Galaxy, why would you want to tell everybody that Giassi Zardes had arthroscopic knee surgery on his right knee for the minor contusion that he got from in the U.S. men's national team January camp? This puts things into a lot more perspective. We knew Zardes wasn't training, but we didn't know the severity of the injury until somebody asked. No, right. And I mean, this is worrying because, as you recall, he broke his foot. He hasn't played a game of professional soccer in 6 months. And this is a guy who's 25 years old. I mean, he should be, playing games all the time. And to go this long without playing competitive soccer, I'm really concerned, especially since he's one of the main engines on this team. I mean, I looked at the team and I think to myself, who can I count on to put in a lot of minutes, right? You don't really, not Robbie Rogers. No. Robbie Rogers has a terrible injury history. Going back to his youth and his book coming out to play, his autobiography, he writes extensively about having multiple knee operations. Going back to when he was when he was playing for Heerenveen, when he was a teenager.
Right.
He, someone who has repeatedly been plagued with injuries throughout his career. Giassi Zardes, you look at, you think, listen, we can count on him for tons and tons of minutes. Apparently not. Yeah. And I'm looking at the roster. Who do I really think is going to put in a ton of minutes? I mean, Daniel Stairs, I think Sebastian Lletget. Van Dam will put in minutes if he doesn't have yellow card accumulation. That he's going to get some yellow cards. So, who are we going to count on to really bodies on the field. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and you're going to have to rely on people like a Jermaine Jones, who's 35 years old. You're going to, again, we get into this, and that's where it was all about, there's one thing if you have a 35-year-old who's going to be your preferred starter, which he is, Jermaine Jones in the center midfield. It's one thing to have that guy. It's worse whenever you don't have depth behind him when you know he's not going to be able to play 34 games. Not only that, but he's going to be gone with the national team. I mean, listen, one of the most devastating things that is going to happen to the LA Galaxy right now, Wendy, is that the players who are national team bound for World Cup qualifiers are going to leave the LA Galaxy, and I think, 5 players might depart the LA, 5 starters will depart the LA Galaxy when that happens.
No. It'll be Jermaine Jones, Sebastian Lletget, Giassi Zardes. That's 3.
And Giovanni Dos Santos.
Oh, right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's right.
So 4 players there. Granted, I don't think Brian Rowe's call-up was.
Brian Rowe's not going to be called up.
Well, I mean, you would have bet that Brian Rowe wouldn't have been called up in January either, Wendy, but he did. All right.
But that's because the camp was in Los Angeles.
I know, it's a proximity thing, but don't think I'm not going to hold that over your head.
Oh yeah, sure.
All right. But anyway, so you have Giassi Zardes. He has the knee surgery. Listen. The bottom line is that he has been resting. He has not been training with the Galaxy. They expect him to start his rehab coming up in the next few days. So realistically,
and how long does rehab take from arthroscopic surgery?
Well, even if you decide that it doesn't take that long, Wendy. March 4th is when this season starts, and that's in half a month, right? So basically 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Okay, let's say 2.5 weeks. You look at the timeline and how it goes. I don't think if you're an LA Galaxy fan, you should be wearing your Giassi Zardes jersey to the first game because I don't think he's going to be playing. All right, so that takes him out, and then we go over to Robbie Rogers. Robbie Rogers had surgery in the offseason for bone spurs, okay? Not a necessarily... how do I say this? Risky procedure that you should be, overly worried about. But it seems right now that it has taken a more serious toll on Robbie Rogers than anybody anticipated. And we don't know what the timeline is of when the LA Galaxy even knew, that it wasn't going well. Because that brings in a whole other situation of, did you trade AJ De La Garza knowing that Robbie Rogers was having issues coming back from surgery?
But it doesn't take a ton of foresight to predict that Robbie Rogers is going to be injured. He has been, every year that he's been with the LA Galaxy, he has missed substantial time due to injury.
Yep.
Anyone who had followed the LA Galaxy for the past few years could predict with some degree of accuracy that Robbie Rogers will miss games due to injury.
Yeah, absolutely. And so taking the depth, and you're right, there's already question marks about, seriously, there's so many question marks about the AJ De La Garza trade.
I don't know what, honestly, I'm so frustrated and furious about it. I really,
and it has nothing
trading an excellent right back.
There it is.
When you're right back that you're planning on starting is injured, or if he underwent surgery in the offseason for bone spurs, then that means they knew he was undergoing surgery.
Right.
They couldn't have planned on the fact that he was going to be starting when he had just gotten surgery. It's ridiculous. And then you also drop Oscar Sordo, and so now we have a midfielder, Rafa Garcia, as our right back.
Well, you look at the Oscar Sordo thing. That one does not raise any flags for me. If you watched LA Galaxy 2 last year at all, Oscar Sordo was missing. All right, I don't know where he went. I don't know. He was playing, but nobody saw him. All right, it was not a good season for him. All right, and so we can't
just be like, no sweat, we don't need a right back. Like, you need a right back.
Right, but quite honestly, in my mind, and I already said this. I think I said this on Twitter, or if not, I'll say it right now so I'm on the record. In my mind right now, I would take Rafa Garcia, who I do not consider I consider him a decent defensive midfielder and a complete and total question mark whenever it comes to right back from the one game that I actually got to see. And so, reserving judgment, but I would take Rafa Garcia over Oscar Sordo right now. We
need to get a right back. I cannot believe we traded AJ De Garza. I'm so mad about it. I'm so mad.
We
traded an excellent right back, and now we need a right back.
Really? Are you angry about this? Because this is like
so frustrated.
This is the fourth show. It's the fourth show that you're angry about. I get it. It's frustrating.
I'm not getting over it anytime soon.
Well, and I don't think the Galaxy fans will, quite honestly, because you're going to see this continue to be an issue. And it's an issue across the entire club. Let's just start. Like, we talked about Robbie Rogers and the replacements. Basically, it's Rafa Garcia right now, and I think you should probably consider moving Dave Romney over from a backup left back over to right back. That's what I would do. But
he's left-footed.
It doesn't matter. Robbie Rogers could be left-footed as well, and Robbie Rogers could be right-footed. That ultimately, as a defender, you can still switch. That makes more sense to me than trying to put Rafa Garcia, who's a defensive midfielder that usually plays in the center, and trying to teach him the angles that happen out there on the right-hand side. This might be the only time I have, and we'll use expertise in air quotes, expertise, all right, in this particular, because that was my position, all right? I wasn't very good. I'm not going to claim that I was any sort of soccer player ever. This is the most you'll ever hear from me talk about soccer. But I was a defender, and I played at the right back. And I'm telling you that if you have speed and you're not ready for it, people will cut the corners and cut the angles, and you're talking about professional level players who will just make you look silly. And so far, Rafa looks like in the first game that we watched, he lacked the width, and sometimes he got pulled inside, following guys. Guys made runs around the outside of him. I mean, that's the stuff. Now, the thing is that Rafa Garcia could totally prove us wrong because he's one of those guys that is just the extreme fighter, Wendy. He's a guy who's
works hard.
He works hard, and he will. If you tell him he's a right back, he thinks he's a right back now. If you go up to Rafa Garcia and be like, hey, what position do you play? He's not going to be like, oh, I really like to play in the central. He's going to be like, I play right back. That's what I am. I live, breathe it. I am a right back.
I do think it actually does matter what foot you're... I mean, Robbie Rogers is pedidextrous, which means he's adept with both his right and left foot. I mean, so is Sebastian Lletget is pretty pedidextrous. So is Jesse Zertis, has both a good left foot and right foot. So he plays on both the left wing and the right wing. Mm-hmm. I think that some people do have like a strong tendency towards one foot or another. If Dave Romney really is left-footed, I think it kind of matters. It
in that position and what he's tasked with doing, he's tasked with covering people more than anything. So listen, Rafa Garcia on the offensive side isn't helping you right now. And I don't think that if you put Dave Romney in that position, he's going to hurt you any more offensively than Rafa Garcia is. And that's where you're worried about the foot issue is, are you right-footed or left-footed to be able to put crosses in on the offensive side, right? Which is why Ashley Cole is left-footed. He plays on the outside, but he can get forward a lot. Whoever's playing on that right-hand side right now, unless it's Robbie Rogers, because realistically, I don't think there's anybody else in the Galaxy who has the experience to be able to feel comfortable moving forward out of their defensive position, isn't going to help you on the offense. I mean, this was the big argument against Rogers and AJ De La Garza, which is that Robbie Rogers doesn't necessarily give you any more going forward than AJ does, and AJ isn't necessarily known as the offensive threat going forward, right? So in this particular case, the foot and what he's going to do with it, as long as he can clear the ball, that's all that matters. And if he can stop guys from cutting inside, and that's going to be on the favored left foot, then that's even better. Push people to the outside where you have to use your right foot to block things, that's fine too. I don't think it's that big a deal. And if you're going to put a defender in a position like Dave Romney, if you're going to put him there, then give him a chance because he's a defender. You got Rafa Garcia is learning like a new way of living. It's like learning a new language.
We're playing a midfielder as a right back.
The depth on this team, and it will continue to be a theme. I know if you don't want to continue listening to the show because we're going to continue talking about the depth throughout this year. Plus, we're going to learn about that depth. Listen, Curt Onalfo came out and said something that is not news. That he basically had said before. He basically said, no, this roster isn't done. We plan on adding to some depth here very shortly. Now,
well, that leads to like a question because Andy Smith on Twitter wants to know, is there any acquisition options for the LA Galaxy to add depth to that black back line, especially with Robbie Rogers' injury?
Yeah, Andy, the question is yes, there's absolutely a chance to add depth in defense. Maybe not at right back specifically, but like in terms of there's some people who might be able to play right back. They're talking about people probably like Nathan Smith or Josh Turnley, who are both LA Galaxy 2 guys. But if you're asking the LA Galaxy to go outside of their organization right now in order to find a right back, I think that you're going to be sorely mistaken. Anolfo basically said that they're going to look to add some depth and that the trialists that they have in there, which we all know about the DC United trialist, and I'll get his name here eventually.
He's a midfielder, Miguel Aguilar.
Yeah, Miguel Aguilar, who I like, by the way, and they should sign him.
Midfielder.
I know, a central midfielder, by the way. So a central midfielder, they should add him. He should be part of this team. I think that
well, cool. When Jermaine Jones and Sebastian Lletget go to the national team, he can be our starting central midfielder.
And you're going to need that. So that type of thing is going to happen. But there's not going to be stuff outside of LA Galaxy 2 here. I mean, they're going to be signing some players. I expect they'll probably fill out the roster up to the 28 players that they have. So that means 5 additional players will be signed. I expect that almost all of those will be LA Galaxy 2 players, and that, yes, there will probably be some defensive players, like I mentioned, Nathan Smith and Josh Turnley. You already have Hugo Ariano, who is in a central midfield role, or central defense role, that has been signed to the senior team from LA
He's
Galaxy 2.
also left-footed too, by the way.
And so left-footed guy.
Lefty.
Lefty. So that's good. Listen, it's just that's going to be your depth right now, and that wasn't a surprise because Onalfo had said this earlier this year that he was going to look to fill out the roster with LA Galaxy 2 guys. So that's your depth you're going to get, and it's basically, and everybody's like, oh, when will we get to see these guys? You already did. All right, they're already playing. This is the guys that pull out the line change and come out after the starters have done, quote unquote starters have done their 60 minutes. So you've already seen them. You're not getting anything magical in this. And, realistically, the roster's done in my mind because they'll sign some of those guys and that'll be it. I mean, they're going to pick some, and there'll probably be more defenders in there because they're obviously at a lack for defenders right now. So that's probably where it's going to be. I don't think you're going to get any more strikers. I think you have everybody that you need in sort of the strikers. And even whenever I say you have everybody that you have for strikers, right? Jossie Zardes isn't playing anymore. So who's the likely starter? It's Jack McBean, okay? So who's going to be coming off the bench? Ari Lassiter. There is your depth chart for strikers. All right, Alessandrini could possibly pull up and take over for Zardes as well. I heard he's a striker as well. I don't know how he pairs with Gio because I realistically haven't even seen Romain Alessandrini play, and neither have his teammates. So as soon as he gets here, they'll start to figure that out. So that could happen as well, Wendy. But I mean, these are the things that we are talking about now.
Yeah.
Is that the
we
depth?
We have a thin roster. I get it, and I want to ask you. Do you think because they're signing, Los Dos players, LA Galaxy 2 players, homegrown players that don't count against the cap, they're really, really cheap, and Raul Estrada on Twitter wants to know, will the Galaxy admit they are in cost-cutting mode? Is this our roster? Because this could be indicia that they are essentially just saying, we are not spending money. We are getting the cheapest players possible, which is essentially like 17 and 18-year-old kids from Los Dos.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they'll be a little older, but yeah, Los Dos skews younger already. So you're already looking at mostly under 23s on LA Galaxy 2. So yes, I don't think they'll ever admit they're in cost-cutting mode, especially not before LAFC comes into town. Why they would choose to even allude to the fact here's the thing about the cost-cutting mode, and I may be on an island with this, but I've talked to some other people, and I think some people who might know a little bit better than and I think the cost-cutting mode is a real thing. That's absolutely, even if the LA Galaxy don't want to talk about it. Kevin has talked enough about it that he has me convinced that that's a real thing, but it's not like the LA Galaxy don't have money. There's a difference because it's not like they're name a small market team, Wendy, that like Columbus almost, but even
Salt
Columbus,
Lake,
yeah,
Kansas
Salt Lake,
City.
Kansas, even Sporting Kansas City still drops some money on some players, right? But realistically, you're looking at almost like the NASL teams that aren't the Cosmos, right? It's kind of like that. Is that they don't have the money to spend.
No, Phil Anschutz is a $12 billion empire. I mean, AEG is every time I go to LA Live and I walk around, I'm like, he is like churning money.
Yeah. So they have the money. That's not the issue here. The issue is totally that for whatever reason, that their thinking is that and I'll try to paraphrase this, and this is my opinion and my opinion only. I believe their thinking is that they spend so much money on their academy players. They spend so much money on LA Galaxy 2. They have all this homegrown talent. The LA Galaxy has been consistently listed as one of those teams who has all this young and ready talent. And by seeing people on Twitter who, I swear to God, it's almost like clockwork. It's as soon as somebody starts playing bad, they always call for the younger person to come in and take over. Which I understand. You see all that, and so they're saying, if I'm going to spend all this money, then these guys should be playing. And why are they not playing? And you talk about, being cheap in terms of, signing guys who are homegrown players. I mean, ultimately, the team still pays for those players. Now, granted, it's not a lot of money, so I'm with you.
$62,000 a year is the minimum salary.
Is the minimum salary, or if they're homegrown players, I mean, realistically, you can sign them up to $150,000. And some of those guys are making more than the minimum of 62. Some of them are making like 78, 80, 90 as homegrown players. It doesn't hit the cap, but that's still money that the LA Galaxy are dishing out towards those guys, right? And in a
No,
lot of
and
cases,
I understand that philosophy, and I believe that it makes some sense that you want to see fruit from your investment. You don't want to throw away your money.
right.
That being said, this is the year. Like, if this is an experiment that we want to test out and be like, are our academy players legitimately good enough to stand and face other MLS teams that are stacked with players from South America, from Europe, all over the world, then this is the mother-loving year, because we're going to have about half our roster with kids from the academy.
Right.
And so if we are good enough, then we're going to find out.
And that's sort of it. It's trial by fire, though. I mean, you realistically, like, I watched, and we know this, that I've watched Jack McBean play and Ari Lassiter play down at LA Galaxy 2. I am high on both of those players. I think Ari Lassiter is a great downhill running striker, which means you play the ball in front of him and he gets to run in a straight line. He gets to do some moves, cut into the side, and he can score you goals. And I think he can score goals for the LA Galaxy senior team. You talk about Jack McBean, who's sort of that hold-up striker who can let Giovanni Dos Santos play off of him if he's going to be the starter. A guy who's good with his back to goal, who's very physical and doesn't mind the contact, and can score goals with his left or right foot. So those are both guys I'm very high on. I will tell you right now, no idea if they're going to be able to score at the senior league level. I believe they can, and I believe Curt Onalfo believes they can, and I believe that Pete Vagenas and Chris Klein believe these guys, all of them, the LA Galaxy 2 guys they're bringing up, are good enough to compete at the senior level. But until you put these guys in the fire and the mixer and you start putting them in pressure situations, you're going to have no idea what this team could possibly be. You and I could be talking in 6 months, Wendy, and we could be going, wow, this LA Galaxy team is so deep. Look at all these guys that come off the bench and make a difference. You got Bradford Jameson IV and Raul Mendiola and Ari Lassiter's lighting it up and Jack McBean. Oh my God, these guys are great. Or we could be like, wow, why do they keep letting Raul Mendiola into this game? Like, it's like there's no depth on, and it's a coin toss. And I've been watching the Galaxy, like I said, since 2008. I've been watching soccer for most of my life. I can tell, once we get to watch these guys, we're going to see things. And then we're going to be able to start dissecting it. But I am a complete lot. You might as well go to Vegas and just, put $200 on red or black at the roulette table, and you will have just as much of an idea of guessing what this team is capable of doing as I sit here as a quote-unquote analyst of this particular team. Complete
this team,
question mark.
you were right that it's going to be probably a more entertaining season, a more exciting season in a lot of ways. But this is going to be a huge referendum on the brain trust that they put in charge of this team after Bruce Arena left, because this is a huge departure from Bruce philosophically, from everything that he does as a coach.
Right.
And there's nothing that is going to probably say more about Curt Onalfo's tenure than the fact that he essentially has thrown away the Bruce Arena playbook and is like, we are going young, untested academy players, which is the opposite of Bruce Arena. And I think that we will know in 6 months. We're either going to be like applauding him and saying, inspired decision, leadership move, to put faith in the academy kids, or we are going to be like, you are incompetent. You put our team in the hands of children who had no idea what they were doing and were not equipped to the task.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen.
No, I think that's really interesting. And realistically, Curt Onalfo is being handed this team, right? I mean, we have to imagine that the guys pulling the strings now are the general manager, and the president, Chris Klein, and anybody else who follows along, Jovan Karofsky, perhaps. Trying to get Jovan on the show here in the next couple weeks. As soon as my schedule calms down a little bit, I'm going to have that happen. I already talked to him, and he's more than willing to come on the show. So Jovan Karofsky will be on Corner of the Galaxy coming up. And Jovan, if you're listening, hi. And so I think he might listen on occasion, which is fun, Wendy. So if you wanted to say hi to Jovan Karofsky, you could do that as well. In fact, I think from now on we're just going to say hi to Jovan every single show.
Well, I know that Jovan is the one who brought in Giovanni Dos Santos, right?
Yeah, that seems to be the case, and apparently a lot more. But he's really excited, and he's
going
really
to tell us about it.
He wants to tell us.
Yeah,
I'm
ready.
And I'm gonna do the best job that I possibly can in trying to get him in studio so that he's sitting screen here in front of me if he's able to pull that off, because I always think that that's more interesting, and that'll allow you guys to call in as well. So if we do a live show, we'll be able to take questions from you. So that's
we're gonna pod with Jovan.
It would be Jovan and the Bean. That was always the joke that Jared made about Jovan Karofsky driving up from San Diego, and that he would pick up Jack McBean, and that Jovan and Jack McBean should have a radio show called Jovan and the Bean. All right, we have a telephone call.
Jovan and the Bean.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have a telephone call. 951. Who's this?
Hi, Josh. It's Juan from the Inland Empire.
Hey, Juan. Thanks for calling in, buddy. Certainly appreciate it.
All right, so it's definitely an experimental year, but is this like probably the last chance we can do this because of the LAFC coming in? So let's say this all crashes and burns.
Right.
Does that mean it gives us the chance, okay, that didn't work, throw all the money down into 2018? It's kind of our last chance to see what we can pull up from these guys.
This is really interesting. You know, somebody came up. I had this theory. One, it's an excellent question, and it was something I actually called one of my good Galaxy friends and had the discussion because somebody had postured this on Reddit in response to one of my questions, and I said that is just such an excellent take on what could possibly be happening that is completely opposite of what a lot of people think. And so you're throwing in like new ideas at me, which is like, oh, hey, you know, I never stopped to think and look at it this way. Could the LA Galaxy possibly be going, listen, we have to live or die with our young guys this year because in 2018, LAFC is here, and we're probably going to bring in a whole bunch of high-priced players to come in and compete with those guys, and we need to know who can cut it, who can't, and otherwise we're cutting them loose and we're not spending the money on the homegrown players anymore. Wendy, what do you think of Juan's theory?
I like it. I like it. It's an LA Galaxy conspiracy theory.
Yes.
I know. Let's get up on the grassy knoll and talk this one out. So
Yeah.
I think that it could be. There's two ways to interpret it, actually. One is that the LA Galaxy is going to use this year as a testing ground to see which of the academy children that they have developed are actually good enough to play in the senior level.
Right.
And the ones who can cut it, they're going to keep, and the ones who can't cut it, they're going to give them the boot. And then they're just going to bring in, new kids into the academy. Like, that's one theory. Another is that they're going to use this year to test the academy kids, and if none of the academy kids cut it, then you just throw everything out and then go back to like Galactico style, and all of a sudden we're signing for Cristiano Ronaldo, right? They're like,
Right.
No, the kids aren't good enough. We're getting, we're signing in these aged Europeans again, because it seems like they have to. They're either going to one extreme
or the
another.
other.
So either we have like 35-year-old aging superstars who are just collecting huge paychecks, or we're going to field like 16-year-olds who've
Yes.
never played a professional game before. It's like
They're new to soccer.
radical extremes. Yeah, radical extremes is what we're going for.
Well, here's my take on it. Well, go ahead, Juan. You continue, and then I'll give you my take.
Just to add on that, because we have a DP slot, and
Yes.
like it looks, all the buzz right now is it's probably going to be like Jonathan Dos Santos in the summer. But let's say the academy project fails, then all of a sudden you're looking at that DP spot a lot differently. You're going,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, if
so,
Jack McBean doesn't score, like, we need a striker.
yeah,
exactly. And with the knee injury and stuff
Yeah, what knee injury to Zardes and all that stuff. Here's the thing. One is I will comment on your Jonathan Dos Santos because everybody talks about this, and I think people might be swaying to the. And I'm not saying you're doing this, Juan, but I think some people are swaying to the. This is a done deal. The LA Galaxy are getting Jonathan Dos Santos in the summertime, and I'm here to tell you right now from sources that I've talked to, from people that I know, from things that questions we have asked behind the scenes, is that I would not expect that to happen 100%. The LA Galaxy will take their time and they will look at the summer and see what they need. And if they need a striker, Wendy, like you were saying, if they need a striker, they might go out and get a striker. Or, unfortunately, this might happen, which scares the crap out of me. If they need a defender to come in and they need a right back, that they might look at a designated player as a right back. You don't get me. Listen, that's my example, not theirs. My example, not theirs. I'm just saying that they're going to look at a position of need more than just the Jonathan Dos Santos thing is locked up and that's done. All right, Juan, now to your theory. I love this theory. It has been my favorite thing that I have been thinking about for probably the last week, and I will tell you this as nicely as I can. I think it's a great theory and it's totally wrong. All right, because I know, and everybody wants it's a positive spin on things, and so I keep sitting there going, I really like this. I like the positive spin. It's a great theory, and I told this to one of my really good Galaxy friends, and he was like, dude, that is one of the best theories I've ever heard. Totally wrong, but like best theories. And that's where I sort of fall on it, is that no, I don't think the LA Galaxy would risk what they're risking in pulling this certain experiment. And quite honestly, I consider this year to be more important, Juan, than next year. All right, next year is going to be big, but you're going to be able to play LAFC on the field, and expansion teams struggle. That's sort of what they do. Unless you're the Seattle Sounders, who made the playoffs their first year. No other expansion team has made the playoffs their first year.
I actually think LAFC could do pretty well.
I can't even begin to look at that. You know who I think could do well this year is Atlanta. We've looked at Atlanta put together a roster.
Ooh, they have put together.
That's what I was thinking. Like, what if LAFC goes the Atlanta route?
I mean, listen, I think
the New York City route.
Yeah, I think Atlanta has put together an excellent roster. I still think they're going to struggle because it's one of those expansion teams things. But at the same time, they have a realistic chance. Once LAFC starts putting ink to paper and signing players and building a roster, then we can start they might be good. They have the money. They have the thought process, a lot like Atlanta, but I'm not sure that they will be as good as Atlanta. Atlanta has been exceptional so far. I mean,
really good.
Really good. I mean, quite honestly, I expect Atlanta to kick the Galaxy's butt right now, just on paper.
I know.
But
They're way better than we are on paper.
No, it is. And you look at that and you're like, Josh, you're crazy. No, Josh isn't crazy. Well, Josh is crazy, but not for this particular reason. Atlanta, on paper, looks good. Now, again, I think they're going to struggle. But that's what you have. This year's more important for me. And I don't understand the cost-cutting attitude, except for the fact that it's sort of like they wasted so much money. I tried to spin it. Excuse me. I tried to spin it earlier. This is what happens when you drink soda and try to do podcasts at the same time. I tried to spin it earlier that it was, a spend wisely sort of idea, right? Because you looked at what happened, and Wendy, you said it eloquently, which was basically there was $9 million worth of salary sitting on the bench for the playoffs. And if you're the LA Galaxy, you can't have $9 million sitting on the bench for the playoffs. So you can't.
MLS team,
yeah,
really.
and especially LA. And yeah, you're absolutely right. No team can handle that or survive that. So you look at what the LA Galaxy did last year and say you cannot repeat that. So it's one of those things. I don't know, Wendy. This is gonna be bad. I can already tell I'm gonna ask this question, and people are gonna give me crap for this. Have you ever driven a boat, Wendy?
I've been in a boat.
Have you driven a boat?
No.
No. Okay. So, Juan, have you ever driven a boat? It could be a little boat. Maybe it's a bumper boat. Maybe it's like some of those things at fun fairs or whatever. Have you ever driven a boat, Juan?
I've been fishing.
I've been fishing. Did you drive the boat, though? This is the important part.
No.
Okay, so here we go. So Josh has driven some boats. Josh likes to drive lots of things. He's driven submarines, airplanes, trains. I haven't done a hot air balloon or a blimp yet. That's on my list.
That's right. Not the entire audience knows that you are a pilot.
I think they do. I don't know if they. Well, I used to be a pilot, but once you're a pilot, you're always a pilot. I don't fly much anymore. It's expensive. Who knew? So the whole thing with boats is that whenever you're steering, you have to sort of take it cautiously because you can overcorrect. If you turn a little bit right, the boat swings way right. If you turn a little bit left, so most people end up like zigzagging whenever they're like driving boats for the first time. And I feel like that's what the LA Galaxy have done. All right, they're zigzagging. They had this plan last year of, hey, we put together this really great roster, which by the way, if you show me that roster at the beginning of the year, I still say the LA Galaxy win an MLS Cup just because you looked at all the talent that was on the team and you say, there's no way. And look at the depth. It's deep. It's the deepest team I've ever seen in Major League Soccer, and that continues even today. So you look at all that. Well, now they've zagged to the complete opposite side. They've overcorrected. They've gone extremely young with a starting lineup that could be good, but might not be. So that's the word.
I have a better analogy.
Hold on.
It's really...
Hold on one second. I'm gonna let Juan go. Juan, I appreciate the call, buddy. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. All right.
No problem. Have a good one.
All right, Wendy, go ahead. Sorry.
So I have a better analogy. You know what it's really like? It's like when you go on vacation. Let's say you go to like Mexico or Hawaii for a week and you go with your best friend.
Okay.
And you guys are out drinking every night or having cocktails. You get up in the morning, you're having Eggs Benedict and
more alcohol.
You're just eating and drinking all day long and laying out by the pool. And then eventually you just start to feel really fat. And then when you come back from the vacation, you're like, okay, I am not eating a thing. I am just cleansing vegetables, no fat, no butter, no sugar, no salt. It's like that. It's like you have to compensate for all the bad things you did by being super duper like conservative, living like an ascetic monk. Just because you have to compensate for what you did.
Right. Yeah, you're overcorrecting. though. It's realistically you should find the happy medium somewhere, and you're not finding the happy medium. You're going in and out, and you're stuffing yourself on vacation, or you're drinking really a lot of champagne. Like, not a little bit of champagne, a lot of champagne, because you were in France and they drink champagne with meals, like, in the morning, at lunch, and then you drink a lot of champagne when you go to England because it's just there all the. This is my honeymoon. I'm still drinking champagne. Basically, that's.
We're getting insight into Josh's honeymoon.
Yeah, it was just a lot of champagne, and realistically, I should just be like, hey, have some champagne every once in a while. But now it's to the point where it sounds ridiculous. Now I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. But yes, I get it. It's the overcorrection. It's everything else in between, and that's sort of. That's sort of it. Wicked1, who's in our chat room on the live show, says, this is an experiment year. Onalfo will be gone if we finish less than third in the West. Wendy, didn't you have a Twitter question that was talking about worst case, best case scenario?
Yes.
Go for that.
Yes. So I'm trying to get in as many Twitter questions as I can. And we did have a Twitter question with respect to, do we have any estimates with respect to what we think this is Philip Tong.
Mm-hmm.
Great show, guys. Predictions for wins this season. Best worst case scenarios. I have a worst case scenario, which is that we lose every game. That's like a worst case scenario. We're just like dead last in the West, laughing stock. The year before LAFC takes the field. How about that for worst case scenario?
I was going to say, Josh, go ahead and save this. Be reasonable and tell Wendy that she's being out of... No, she's right. The worst case scenario is they lose every game. I don't think they'll lose every game, but realistically, I could see a team that is currently constituted, if injuries continue to happen, if things, don't really change course, you could see a team that wins, 8, 9, 10 games. I mean,
yeah, we missed the playoffs for the first time in a decade, right? That would be like a terrible situation.
Well,
right?
Since 2009, that was when because 2008 they missed the playoffs, so 2009.
In 9 years.
Yes.
Yeah. Best case scenario. I think a best case scenario would be sort of a deep run in the playoffs.
Which I also see. And then Josh, tell her she's crazy. No, he can't, because this is what this team is. It's just a giant question. I don't know how to explain this team to people, Wendy. Listen, I'm excited by the fact that I think they're younger, they're quicker, they're faster. They'll have more energy. I think they are going to be, quote unquote, more durable, although certainly right now that doesn't seem to be the case. But it's one of those. Last year was, and I remember the reporters, and we would do it all the time, after the games, we go from the press box and we walk down, just to give you a little behind the scenes. We walk down, and then we walk on the field, and then we go in the tunnel. And then when you go in the tunnel, eventually on the right-hand side, underneath StubHub Center, is where the press conference room is. And so that's where we would go and wait for Bruce last year, and it's where we will go and wait for Curt this year. And so as you get into the press conference, the beat writers are down there, and you can sort of sit and talk, and people discuss the game. People are formulating their stories, or, their stories are mostly written already, Wendy, and so now it's about finding quotes from the guys to sort of put into your story and to make your case or to sort of finish out your stuff. So you're talking to other people to find out what other people think, and you're trying to sort of formulate this plan of how the LA Galaxy, did in this particular day. And so we would talk, and you would say, hey, once this team gets healthy, this team is going to be really good. Like once they
this team gets healthy.
and that's what we did. And then after a while, I kept going down there, and I would say it, and other people would say it, and you keep saying it, and then I look back and I'm like, okay, guys, it's September. We've been saying once this team gets healthy, and once you get all the players on the field, because Robbie Keane was injured, you had Steven Gerrard that was injured. There were other players that were injured that realistically the LA Galaxy needed on the field and were never there. So it was September, and you're like, this team's never going to get healthy. That's never going to happen. And sometimes we look early in the season and we can go, once this team gets healthy, once this team gets some playing time together, those are not absolutes in terms of that's not guaranteed to happen, Wendy. And that's where you should be worried that already you're dealing with injury issues.
Yeah, and to two starters. Jesse Zardes and Robbie Rogers. Our only right back is injured, and our biggest goal threat, the person, along with Giovanni Dos Santos, the person that the Galaxy are going to look to score goals more than anyone else, they're injured, out.
You know what I can't...
I don't even know what's the timeline for when he's actually going to be back. Like a month, 2 months? I have no idea.
Robbie Rogers?
No, Zardes.
Zardes should begin his rehab here in the next week. As we said, you figure 2 to 3 weeks to get him back. He's probably back by the by the second or third game for the LA Galaxy. Realistically, I think that seems reasonable to me right now. That's if there's
rusty. He hasn't played soccer in 6 months. He's going to be rusty.
Well, he has. Remember, he did do training with the U.S. men's national team. I mean, he was, granted, no games, but he was training. He has been training since then. So it was August 27th, by the way, a scoreless draw with the Vancouver Whitecaps is when Zardes came out, and that was the last time he played last year. So it's not like he hasn't touched the soccer ball in 6 months. He has been doing stuff. It's just that this has set him back sort of from that recovery of being 100% healed from the foot. And Wendy, as you and I have talked about many times before, that once you injure something, your body tends to overcompensate, and that's how you injure other things. And
That's
so
exactly what happened to me. I injured my left wrist, and then because I kept doing yoga and planks and stuff like that, I wound up hurting my right shoulder. Like, it's a weird thing. The human body is peculiar. It there's all kinds of stuff going on that you have no idea.
Well, I hurt my neck on the right-hand side, and then, you're like leaning one way for that. And then I hurt my knee on my left-hand side, probably because I was leaning and walking differently than whenever I hurt my neck. Yeah, it's the balance issue. It's all those things. And quite honestly, you don't know if the LA Galaxy are ever going to be healthy this year. Now, they're young enough that you would say some of these players should be healthy, but a guy like Robbie Rogers, don't know. Timetable quite right now, I would say, is unknown. All right, so unknown. He's not going to be available for the start. Pretty much, Curt Onalfo has already ruled him out for that. I would say that unless he's back training in the next 2 weeks, that you might as well write off, the first month of the season, because it just doesn't seem like he's anywhere near that return. And so I think we're going to find out more about this story as it continues to go on about what exactly is up with Robbie Rogers and how things are going. So sort of keep that in mind, and of course we're going to do our best here to help you guys through that. We got just a little bit of time left.
Kingdom for an AJ De La Garza.
Yeah, I know. He's you know what? I'm gonna just take a second. He seems so happy in Houston. I mean,
don't tell me that. I don't even know what to say. I'm so upset about this.
He seems like, quite honestly, this may be really good for his career. I mean, if you're an AJ De La Garza fan, you should be excited about what he's going to be able to do this year, because he seems to be a little bit reinvigorated, and you can bet he's going to show up for those games against the LA Galaxy. That's must-see TV, boys and girls. AJ De La Garza motivated playing against the LA Galaxy and playing for the Houston Dynamo, who seem like their team is shaping up. So maybe not a basement dweller this year for Houston, which is unfortunate for the LA Galaxy, who may be fighting for that basement spot.
Yeah, we're going to be the basement dwellers, everyone.
It could be. You trade one player away, and all the backup depth that you have completely goes away. Imagine if AJ De La Garza was just starting these games. These preseason games, nobody would even be worried that Robbie Rogers was injured.
I'd be like, it's okay, don't need him, don't care.
It'll be interesting. All right, LA Galaxy weekly schedule. We're already on Thursday, but Friday the team is already training in Santa Barbara. Their first day was Thursday, February 16th, doing this preseason camp up in Santa Barbara. They have training tomorrow, Friday, early training in Santa Barbara, and then they're going to play that closed door scrimmage against Alashkert FC. At Westmont College. Again, closed door, so don't even try to get in there. And don't yell at me. And I don't know if anybody's going to tweet out the game on Saturday. If it's closed door, a lot of times that doesn't happen. And I don't know if there's going to be any journalists capable of performing that task that might be allowed into that game. So
Jose on Twitter wanted to know when the LA Galaxy are going to start streaming such games on Facebook.
A lot of people were doing that, and that was my whole argument sort of against going back to Las Vegas again, is if the stadium doesn't have the streaming capabilities, which seems that is actually an issue. And it could be. It's a minor league baseball stadium. Maybe they don't have the robustness of I don't know any stadium that doesn't have streaming capabilities. Anyway, it's an argument against playing in Las Vegas. I think that they should stream their games on Facebook, but locally that's never going to fly, because obviously you have Spectrum Sportsnet, who has the contract. This is why the LA Galaxy gets so much money every year from a television partner, is to be able to stream those games, or put those games on television. So it sort of limits the availability for people who don't have Spectrum or don't have the ability to get Spectrum, which was formerly Time Warner Cable. So Yeah, I don't know if that's high on their priority list, but it should realistically. I think you build excitement whenever you stream these early season games, and I like the fact that the Jolos game was on TV, Wendy, and I like the fact that you could sort of watch and be like, okay, the season's starting. It's kind of like preseason baseball. It's like, hey, the season started. This game doesn't mean much, but I like to see soccer that is my team on the television. So I don't like the fact that they play, that they play San Jose and that game's not available to anybody unless you go. And a lot of people love that trip, and I think that players love that trip as well. Somebody wrote in and told me, the players really seem to like being in Las Vegas and break up the monotony of preseason training camp as well. And I'm certainly not going to discount that. I think that's true. But yeah, it's strange to me that you wouldn't use this time in the preseason to sort of build that audience and excitement for the regular season. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Any other questions we have on Twitter before we're done? Because we're kind of.
Are you super excited about revival of the Superliga?
Okay, so is Superliga coming back? This is Josh not playing. Superliga.
That's just the question I got on Twitter.
Yeah, Superliga was all about the top Mexican teams playing the top MLS teams and directly at each other. It wasn't through the CCL, CONCACAF Champions League. So if the Superliga comes back, I actually do like it because I think that they could find a time to play it, and I would play it in place of CONCACAF Champions League. And you can say, "Oh, but you don't get a Club World Cup spot, Josh." And Josh says, "Nobody cares about the Club World Cup spot." Nobody. And people argue with me. Oh, man, I have had people write me like 6-page emails about why the Club World Cup is so important. And I will tell you that most of the time it takes place like at 3 o'clock in the morning because it's in Japan or something like that. And that, Real Madrid plays their B squad for the game. And, they beat the Asiana champions, whoever that is, from like the Japan League, the J League, right? And nobody cares. Nobody cares. Now, if your LA Galaxy were in it, would that be a big deal? Yeah, it would be. You would be more excited about that. But at the same time, does the world care that the J League champion got stomped by Barcelona's B team? That's the problem that I have with the Club World Cup not meaning anything. I think the CONCACAF Champions League is something if you can prove that you are a dominant force in your region. That's important. So the Superliga pitting the best in Mexican soccer against the best in Major League Soccer would be very exciting for me, and I would welcome that. And hopefully it would be played at a time where both teams are actually in their seasons, and that would be fun to see. So that's my take. All right. Is that it? Can we go now?
That's it. We can go.
Thank God. All right. I promise there will be actual games to talk about soon. All right, all this, and maybe we'll do a show without talking about AJ De La Garza. That might actually happen.
I don't know. He lives in my heart. There's nothing I can do about it.
Somebody said that that you need to drink some scotch to take the edge off next time. So that'll be.
Not bad. You know what? We should try sometime when we're feeling experimental. We should try like a buzzed podcast where I have a glass of wine and you have a beer and we just see what happens.
I've never podcasted under the influence. What are you talking about? Absolutely. No, we can do that. That's fun, and we can do it with all the listeners too. Everybody can tell us what you're drinking, and then we will see if the podcasting is better or worse whenever that happens. So we can mark that down on the calendar as something fun to do. All right, that does it for us. Next week's show's on Monday and Thursday. Again, the LA Galaxy will start working towards an actual game that you can watch. The Portland Timbers will play against the LA Galaxy at StubHub Center. You lucky people, you. 8 p.m. Pacific time on Saturday, February 25th. This game will also be broadcast on Spectrum Sportsnet. So if you're not going to be at the preseason game, this is it. But this is your last chance before the season starts, Saturday, February 25th. Portland Timbers in town to take on the LA Galaxy in the last preseason game where you could expect to see players like Joao Pedro. And yes, the somewhat missing so far, Romain Alessandrini should also be there. Giovanni Dos Santos, that will be three designated players if you include Jelle Van Dam playing on the field at the same time, and that will be more than likely your starters for this season. So that game is the important one to go to. And then, of course, the LA Galaxy kick off on Saturday, March 4th, 2017 at 1 p.m. against FC Dallas. Again, 2 shows next week, the live show on Thursday, a Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on Monday. We have a bunch to get to next week and hopefully some guests as well. And if my schedule calms down, some good guests. All right, so let's see if we can do that. Wendy, why don't you tell people where they can find you and we'll get on out of here.
You can find me at cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm a contributor to American Soccer Now, and of course, I'm on Twitter at Barsblon.
All right, if you're looking for me on Twitter, at Guesman, JGUESMAN. And of course, please go on over to at Galaxy Podcast on Twitter. That's where you can find us. Facebook, Corner of the Galaxy. iTunes, Corner of the Galaxy. SoundCloud, Corner of the Galaxy. It's really simple. Type in Corner of the Galaxy. You can find all that stuff. All right, that does it for us. We hope you guys had a fun night. Thanks for the callers. Thanks for the questions. We will certainly keep you included in this season as the LA Galaxy march towards the start of the 2017 season, just around the corner. She's Wendy Thomas. I'm Josh Guesman. Everybody have a great day, great night whenever you're listening to us, and we will catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. And for all of your independent LA Galaxy news, discussion, and entertainment, including this podcast, head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. Fans, thanks for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.